Hi, my name is Sandy. Welcome to Ancestry Roads Webcast, where we talk about Appalachian stories. Today's topic is going to be about the Appalachian dialects. There is actually a thing called Appalachian English, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that this is just a way of explaining the way that we talk about things, where we inherited it, why we talk about these things. There's no quiz, there's no test, there's no making fun of or anything like that. It's just kind of a way to explain things that I personally do. I'm not a doctor or a speech pathologist, but all throughout my life, I have spoken broken Appalachian English. So let's go ahead and get started and figure out this Appalachian English. So I was on a Zoom call about 2 weeks ago with people all over the world, and it was a genealogy Zoom. And they know that I do work with Appalachian stories, and they could not figure out what is the pronunciation, what is the correct pronunciation, and how should they be saying it where they live or to whoever they want to speak to. And I always kind of laugh and it says, well, the way you pronounce it is kind of where you live. Do you live in Appalachia? If you do, you're going to say it the right way. So, what is the right way? If you're living in Appalachia, you are most definitely going to have the latch be part of the emphasis. So, you're going to say Appalachia. Those that do not live in Appalachia will tend to say Appalachia. So keep that in mind as you go around. In my opinion, truly, I've heard both. If I am traveling to the South, I will end up saying Appalachia a lot because in the South US, that's what they say. So you'll find me saying both, but for most part, Appalachia is really the way that you want to pronounce this region. And a couple interesting tidbits. So the people in Appalachia do have a very unique dialect. It's a dialect. There is also emphasis on the way you say things all throughout Appalachia, an accent, if you will. But there is a certain dialect with Appalachia that cannot be found in other areas. It's a mix of the immigrants that came to America and then what we made our own. You'll notice that when I say the dialect will change a little bit, the accent will change a little bit as you travel from North Appalachia to South Appalachia. If you take a road trip from, say, New York, Pennsylvania, parts of Appalachia, all the way down to Mississippi, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about as far as the little bit of changes of dialect and accent. And where is Appalachia? And where are these changes occurring? If you look at the map, it's circled and highlighted in different colors. These areas are a general idea of where the dialect is, all in white. And then the areas that are highlighted is a general idea of how the accent changes a little bit as you go along. The origins of our Appalachian English does come from mostly the Scots Irish, the Ulster Scots. So that's mostly where we are getting our little idiosyncrasies in the way we say things and how we say things. There's really not a hard boundary of where this dialect begins and ends. This is just a general idea on the map. And if you're up north, you will get a little bit more quicker word out. And then if you're down south of Appalachia, you'll drawl it out just a little bit more. And that's going to be the combination of Appalachian English with a little southern drawl. So let me give you some examples that I personally have used since a child. And I was raised partly in Appalachia in West Virginia. So these pronunciations, when I come out of Appalachia, kind of confuse people a little bit. So we tend to use the in place of O. So instead of hollow, we'll go, well, it's down in the hollow. So you won't get the O, you'll get the And we do tend to shorten our words a lot. Instead of saying fixing to, it becomes fixing. I notice another way that I shorten my words and sentences is sometimes I will drop the preposition in a preposition phrase in a sentence. So we do tend to shorten words. We do tend to shorten sentences as well. And the one thing that always cracks me up, especially when I go back to visit relatives in West Virginia, are the double nouns. So we do use double nouns a lot as well. And an example that you see here is hound dog or rifle gun. The reason why this cracks me up is if I just came to you and said, well, I have a hound, instantly you're going to get a picture of what I'm talking about. I don't need to tell you it's a dog. And the same with rifle gun. If I tell you, well, let me go get the rifle, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't really need to have the double nouns, but we do. We add them. And here's some other things that I personally grew up with and I've seen and heard throughout my family line. When I first met my husband, for example, who is family from Minnesota, they have very distinct ways of saying things. But in Appalachian English, we tend to merge or have similar sounds. So when I would say a pen, to me, a push pen and a pin sound the same exact way. I don't tend to differentiate. The one that really drives my husband crazy is you notice the box of colors here. Crayons are often said in Appalachian English as crowns. So to this day, and I won't tell you how old I am, but to this day, since a little child, I still say crowns. They are not Crayolas. They are not crayons. They are crowns to me. And then a lot of my family, if you notice on the top right, when they say tire, it comes out a lot of times as tar. So can you go over there and get me the tar? And that is very common type of enunciation that you have with it. And then of course, one of the most famous ones is opera becomes opry. We do like to have Y's at the end of our words. Here's some other common pronunciations, and these truly were inherited by the immigrants who came to the area that we now define as Appalachia. The double negative, hear it all the time, up and down Appalachia, whether you're North, Central, or South Appalachia. Don't, and no are very much in the same sentence. So a good example would be, he just don't know no better. I hear it all the time. I hear those negatives all the time. We use a as a verb as part of our little attachment to the verb that we're using. So for example, here, my brother was driving his truck, or, I saw him walking down the road. It's just something that was kind of inherited again from the Scots Irish that came about. And one thing that definitely was inherited by the Scots Irish are the measurements. So a foot will always stay a foot. It will never change to feet. No matter how many feet there are, it will stay a foot. So if you're asking me for a measurement and I tell you the line was 4 foot long, that is perfectly normal to me. I don't automatically translate that back to, oh, that was 4 feet long. It's always going to be a foot. A foot's a foot to me. I don't know why, but you'll find that again up and down from North Appalachia all the way down to the south. A couple of things to keep in mind as we finish up this presentation, that although Appalachian English is spoken in Appalachia and very heavily, it does tend to travel with the person. And I am a great example of that. So being raised in Maryland and West Virginia, I've got a very heavy dose early on of Appalachian English. But as I travel for work, I often do conferences and speeches and training. I will find that every once in a while, if I try not concentrate and take that professional voice off, you will start to hear a little bit of Appalachian English come into play. It's an interesting story. I was doing a training session one day and somebody said, I can't place your accent. Where is your accent at? And a gentleman all the way in the back said, I know exactly where she's from. And, laughing, I go, okay, go for it. And he goes, I don't know, but you're speaking Appalachian English, so you're from Appalachia. So it's kind of interesting to me that if you know it, raised with it, then it comes familiar and you can hear it out of somebody's voice, no matter where you are in the world. And probably the most important thing that I would like you to take with you as we end this presentation, Appalachians, in the way they speak, in the way that they say things, that does not mean uneducated. As any child in the world will do, they will mimic and pick up what their parents and their elders and their brothers and their sisters and their cousins say. This is just a different type of English that was brought along to America from the immigrants. And it's really an old form of Old English. It does not mean that they are uneducated just because of the way they speak or sound. They are quite educated. It's just the way that they were raised and brought up and how they say things. It's really that simple. So if you ever are around Appalachia and you hear them speak and you're not quite sure what they're saying, just remember we like to use our ERs instead of O's, and we love to put Y's on the end of almost everything that you see. Thanks for watching. Make sure to click the subscribe button and the like button.